Hey, greetings everyone, it's GleeCon back again, bringing you another episode of Lore of Warcraft. Thank you for tuning in. On our last episode, we continued to do the struggling hunter Nessingwary through the Hillsbred foothills as Alliance, but he's woefully underleveled, so I've made some steps. I'm in the process of making some steps to mitigate that for future episodes on him, notably just grinding mobs. But we'll talk about that on the playthrough episodes next time. On the reading, we've been reading War of the Scaleborn. We just read chapter 11 last time, and basically the Order Dragons have found out about the machinations of the Primal Dragons, and they have decided, while they have every justification for bringing the battle to them, they don't want to do that. They don't want to be the ones to officially kick off the war. It's obviously, they have shown that nothing will make them be the ones to start it. Nothing. So that's definitely something that the Primals have to their advantage. And what they've decided to do instead is try to use Malygos' magic to kind of create like an illusory army to maybe dissuade the Primals from attacking. So that can't fail. So stay a while and listen as we jump into chapter 12 of War of the Scaleborn. The Black Dragon flight imprisoned Acronia in a small, windowless cavern, one deep within the mountains of the Reach. The floor was rough-hewn underfoot. Wan light crept in from the braziers in the hallway outside. Unbreakable elementium bars sealed the entrance. 2 black dragons guarded her day and night, keeping the stone wards around her prison strong. After her interrogation, Acronia's guards never spoke more than a word or two to her at a time. However, her Draconid minders took pity on her and brought her books and malleable stones. Acronia did not know what to do with the books. To her, knowledge was ever the domain of the Blue Flight, but she found she could stack and manipulate the stones, which gave her something to do when the boredom set in. To keep time, she counted the changes in her guard, surmising she had been imprisoned for at least a full clutch of moons, maybe 2. To Acronia's surprise, guilt was one of her constant companions. Without Raszageth's thunder ringing in her ears, Acronia couldn't escape the memories of the villages she had attacked. Mortal screams clawed at the edges of her sanity. The smell of burned flesh and fur curled in her nostrils. In her mind's eye, she could still see the dancing silhouettes of the dying. Perhaps there was some Titan magic in these cells that forced the occupants to relive their crimes over and over again, but whatever it was, it did not soften Acronia's heart toward the aspects of their flights. In particular, her hatred for Neltharion and the Black Dragon flight remained. Some days she wished Neltharion had seen fit to kill her. Acronia had no reason to hope for salvation. Iridikron had been clear that if she were to be captured by the aspects or their dragon flights, he would not come to her aid, nor would Raszageth, who thought of Acronia as nothing more than a plaything. Hers was a meaningless, dull existence devoid of any hope, save that of a quick end, until one night, when a roll of thunder shook Acronia awake. Shouts echoed down the corridors outside her cell. Acronia lifted her head, blinking and bleary-eyed. More thunder shivered through the mountain, a sound she did not hear with her ears, but rather felt in her bones. Raszageth, she wondered, turning her head toward the source of the sound. No, it cannot be. Iridikron would never allow it. But who else could bring such storms to bear, ones with the power to make the very earth rumble? Had Iridikron's stony heart softened toward his sister? No, it seemed like too much to hope. Her brother would not risk premature war with the aspects on her behalf. She'd eavesdropped and learned that the aspects' keepers were gone, but the Stone Scale was still gathering his armies and making plans. Of all the incarnates, nobody respected the aspects' power more than Iridikron, which was precisely why he'd spent so many years preparing to destroy them. Outside the cell, Acronia's guards shared a look. Hurried footsteps echoed off the stone. Dragons rushed past, shouting orders at one another. Their shadows rippled across the walls of Acronia's cell. Curious, she rose to her feet and eased forward. She craned her neck, watching the activity outside. Armored Draconid marched by, armed with lances and axes. One of Acronia's guards, a large black dragon named Endymion, stepped forward. "Flightmaster Laverian!" he shouted at someone Acronia could not see. "What's happening?" "It's Raszageth," a third black dragon replied, pausing just on the cusp of Acronia's field of view. Laverian stood taller than both of Acronia's guards. The black was a muscular, powerful creature outfitted in the same gleaming plates the Draconid wore. The Primalists march on the Reach. Acronia's heart leapt. Impossible, Endymion replied. Has Raszageth gone mad? She must know the Reach bristles with the strength of the Black Dragonflight, and for her to strike tonight of all nights. The Black Dragon glanced behind him, cognizant of Acronia's presence. He frowned and did not finish his statement. How did she mobilize her army so quickly? The other guard said, a smaller female with hooked horns. Acronia thought her name was Sandesia. How did we not know about this in advance? The Storm Eater hid her forces inside the eye of a powerful tempest, the Flight Master said, lifting his head and flaring his nostrils. The shadow scales could not penetrate the fury of her maelstrom. But that is neither here nor there. Our aspect has summoned all available wings to the battlefield, where we will fight alongside the Drakthir in earnest. It's to be the first test of the Wyvern's strength. Acronia narrowed her eyes. Her guards had whispered of Neltharion's newest abomination, the Drakthir, made from the blood of mortals and the essence of dragons. She'd even seen one or two passing by. They were lighter than Draconid, winged, and capable of knocking full-grown dragons from the sky with their aerial attacks. Neltharion created the Drakthir for one purpose and one purpose alone, to kill primal dragons, and perhaps more specifically, the Incarnates. Will you need additional reinforcements? Endymion asked. As of yet, no, the Flight Master said, looking past the guards at Acronia. We have yet to ascertain the Storm Eater's purpose. It is best you remain. Very well, Sandesia said with a nod. Winds be with you, friend. The Flight Master returned the gesture, and with you. When he was gone, Endymion turned his head to Acronia. Do not hope for rescue. The Drakthir will make quick work of Raszageth and her forces. They were created to protect the Broodlands from the Incarnate's brutality. I have seen Raszageth's brutality 100 times over, Acronia replied with a hiss. Every scar scratched into my hide was left by her talons. The fury of her winds will strip the very scales from your back and peel the soft flesh from your wings. Do you think you can stand against the power and might of the Incarnates? The second guard remained cold. We will see who still stands by morning. That we will, Acronia replied with equal malice. With that, Acronia's guards turned their attention away, but Acronia smelled the tension in the air. Every time a bolt struck the mountainside, the two black dragons shook shivers from their wings. When the ground trembled from the power of the storm's fury, they exchanged a glance. As the screams of the wounded echoed in the mountain corridors, they shuddered. Hours passed. The battle raged on. Dragons and Draconid came and went. As the hour grew late, a battered, bleeding black dragon limped into the dungeon and said, Endymion, Sandesia, our flight needs every fresh wing it can get. Go to the front. I will guard your prisoner with what strength I have left. We cannot abandon our post, Ignion, Endymion said. We have instructions that this prisoner is to be guarded by 2 members of our flight at all times. And you are badly injured, my friend, Sandesia added. You need the healers, not guard duty. You do not understand, Ignion replied. If the Reach falls, the Primalists will free Riddicon's sister anyway. You must go. Fight. I cannot fly, but I can certainly rest here and maintain the wards. Acronia sidled a little closer to her cell's seals, curious, and Endymion looked to Sandesia, the question clear in his gaze. He is right, Sandesia said softly. The Reach cannot fall this day. But it will, Acronia thought. Your miserable flight is already failing to push Raszageth back. Neltharion was powerful, it was true, but even the ground trembled with the Storm Eater's fury. Endymion gave the old black dragon a nod. Very well. We will trust our charge to you. Fight well, Ignion said to them. The 2 black dragons hurried away, leaving Ignion as Acronia's sole guard. The dragon towered over Acronia, taller, broader, and far older than any of her previous wardens. Acronia could feel the weight of the dragon's strength in the stone around her. Even injured, he was far more powerful than anyone she had seen here in the dungeons. So, Ignion said, sinking down beside Acronia's cell, I finally meet the dragon who betrayed our flight. Your flight betrayed all of dragonkind, Acronia said with a hiss. I will revel in watching Raszageth strike your aspect from the skies. As if Raszageth could hear those words, thunder struck the mountain. The old dragon looked up as though he could see the storm outside through the stone.
Tell me something, Acronia, sister of Iridikron. If you hate us so, why did you choose to be ordered?
Now Therian had asked Acronia a similar question, though she doubted the Earthwarder believed her answer, so it sounded like a lie when she said, I wanted to believe in the dream of your flights.
And why did you find us wanting?
Igneon replied. Blood pooled under his body, gleaming dark in the low light. Whether the old dragon realized it or not, he was dying, and with him the strength of the wards around Acronia's prison. I thought I might find a place among you, somewhere I truly belonged, Acronia continued, watching the puddle widen under the old dragon. But order magic turned me into something hideous, unnatural. I could not stand the thought of what I had become, so I fled the Broodlands and returned to my brother.
Because Iridikron is known for his mercy, Igneon said with a snort. Knowing him, it would not surprise me if he somehow manipulated you into coming to the Broodlands in the first place. The Stone-Scaled excels at that sort of thing.
I made that choice on my own, Acronia replied with a growl.
Did you now? He replied. I'm sure your brother made you think as much.
My brother would never manipulate anyone into accepting order magic, Acronia said with a snarl, ignoring the seed of doubt Igneon sought to plant in her heart.
Iridikron would do anything to see the aspects fall, Igneon said. He would compromise the very values he holds inviolate, and burn the Broodlands themselves. Why then would he not find a way to weaponize his own sister in this pursuit?
Lies, Acronia said, backing away from the door. You wish to turn me against him. His next breath rasped, and he said,
No, little one. I merely wish for you to see Iridikron for what he is, a master of schemes who treats others no better than the arid pebbles beneath his feet.
Igneon coughed. Flecks of blood spattered over the stone floor.
I do not know truly what caused you to come to and then turn from us, but I do not think it is as simple as what you said. I do believe that there is still a place for you here, but there is no future for you at your brother's side.
Lies, lies, lies! Acronia curled up in one corner of her cell, glaring at Igneon. I hope Raszageth leaves your flight in tatters. The old dragon did not respond. Outside, the sticky red pool around him stained the stone. It crept over the floor, seeping past the bars of her cell. Igneon put his head down, his breath labored, his mastery over the mountain stone growing ever weaker. Before long, Igneon's consciousness faded. His wards in the mountain crumbled like wet earth, and the stone came alive under Acronia's feet. She did not wait. Despite the chaos, someone would notice her wards had fallen. If she wanted to escape, now was her only chance. Thrusting her talons into the stone, she tore down the wall beside her cell bars. She slipped from her cell, keeping to the shadows and heading for the exit. With the chaos in the dungeons, none paid her any mind. After all, she looked enough like one of them, and no one had any reason to think Iridikron's sister had escaped. Man, the dragonflight just gets dumber and dumber by the minute. Like, okay, first of all, just think about it. What would be more damaging or versus the benefits? Is the benefits of having 2 fresh fighters instead of, say, 1 anywhere more than the damage that could be caused by this girl escaping again? And second, how does this old ancient dragon not know he's dying or even close to unconsciousness? And why would you create a prison that could not be maintained in the event of someone stepping away for a second? Just all of it is ridiculous. Acronia burst from the mountain and into the storm. Rain pelted her scales as she bounded out onto a landing platform. The clouds churned in the sky, gathering so thick and dark Acronia could not tell if it was day or night. Lightning flared. Thunder clapped, intertwining with the howls and screams of battle. The wind shrieked in her ears. She closed her wings against her back, cowering in the safety of stone. Though she had flown with Raszageth for more than 50 summers, Acronia had never seen the Storm Eater's full fury, but this might be close, and it was terrifying. A massive vortex swirled along the northwestern mountain ridge, beating itself against the cliff's mighty face. The cyclone tore trees from the ground, hurled boulders through the air, and sucked a river into the sky. No doubt Raszageth herself flew at the center of that maelstrom, commanding her forces from the safety of its fury. However, Neltharion's Drakthir had broken the Primalists' aerial front line, leaving the Primalists fighting in scattered packs on the winds. The Drakthir were merciless, brutal. They would leap into the skies with targeted precision, slashing at the Primal's delicate wing membranes. Acronia watched as two dived upon a Primal Dragon's back in perfect synchrony, then drove their talon-shaped weapons into the poor creature's muscles. With a scream, the dragon plummeted to the earth. The Drakthir leapt away and glided to their next target. The Primalists' Terrasek forces on the ground fared little better. They too fell before the combined might of Neltharion's Drakthir and Draconid. As in the skies, the Drakthir on the ground moved in perfect concert. It was an unnerving thing to watch, even from this vantage point. Their coordination left thousands of Terrasek bodies broken in their wake. Acronia wasn't sure she could help Raszageth and her armies, but she had to try. Summoning up her courage, Acronia leapt from the landing. It took every ounce of her strength to stay aloft. The Storm Eater's winds were furious, frantic, and though Acronia had long experience flying in Raszageth's storms, she had never seen them rage quite like this before. The air currents changed paths faster than Acronia could predict. One moment the air filled her wings, the next it darted away, forcing Acronia to dive to maintain her momentum. She spiraled and danced, hiding among the ranks of the black dragonflight, avoiding the Primalists who would not recognize her, looking for Raszageth all the while. And this is honestly, for the Ordered Dragon's best-case scenario, that she decides to join in and help the fight. And even now, she's canceling out one of the two people that you went to help. In the distance, enormous braziers blazed at the base of a mountain. Neltharion stood in his visage on an open platform alone. To think that he would stoop to take the form of a mortal? Perhaps his visage was a disguise. Few Primalists would think to look for a mortal. Acronia curled her lip. The little black dragon had heard of Iridikron speaking of the aspect's visages with disgust, and she would recognize the black aspect no matter which form he assumed. Though the Earth Warder could not exert power over her conscious will, she was drawn to him, almost as if he exerted a gravitational force. Inquisitive, she banked in his direction. She sailed over the Draconid and Drakthir unnoticed. Unremarkable. To their eyes, Acronia was just another black dragon returning from the front. Several flight leaders patrolled the skies above the black aspect, drawing Raszageth's fury away from him. In his mortal form, Neltharion wore a Titan-made artifact on his right forelimb. Acronia did not have a name for such a thing. It was wrought in gold and shaped like a mortal hand. The artifact glowed so bright it held the very shadows around him at bay. Is that like Tyr's hand? Neltharion held the artifact aloft, watching the battlefield with a fanatical intensity. As he did so, the Drakthir shifted their positions, moving as one. When he cast his arm in front of him, speaking words that were stolen by the winds, the Drakthir in the skies turned their attention to one of Raszageth's commanders. They sent the poor creature hurtling to the ground. This is like you see in the animated cutscene leading up to Dragonflight. Those short movies. A shiver racked Acronia's scales. It seemed the Earth Warder controlled the Drakthir just like the Keepers controlled him, perpetuating the cycle of domination and oppression. Acronia hated herself. She hated that moment of weakness that drew her to Tyrhold so long ago. She had half a mind to strike now and take the Earth Warder by surprise, but she could not stand against an aspect. Raszageth, on the other hand, would be a worthy match. If the Storm Eater hoped to turn the winds of war, she might start by destroying that artifact. Raszageth had to know what Acronia had seen. Wheeling, Acronia made for the front lines. She dipped low, hoping the mountain's strong backs would shelter her from the worst of the winds. As she skirted a ridge, she felt a predatory gaze crawl up her spine. Acronia glanced over her shoulder just in time to see a large, fiery magma talon dive toward her. A rush of adrenaline shot through her heart. On instinct, she rolled sideways. The primal dragon missed her by inches, the heat of his scales searing the flesh of her wings. She winced, feeling her delicate wing membrane stretch taut with the heat. "Hold your fury, my friend!" Acronia tried to shout, but the wind stole her words away. The fire primalist wheeled in the air and dived at Acronia a second time. With a powerful flap of her wings, she darted right, landing on a vertical cliff face and digging her claws into the stone for support. As the primalist rushed at her, Acronia thumped her tail on the rock, sending a shower of razor-sharp stone shrapnel into the air. The stone fragments pierced the primalist's wings. It wasn't enough to kill him, but the attack forced him to the ground. He slammed into the mud below, rising to his feet with an angry howl. Before she could draw the attention of his comrades, Acronia launched herself off her perch. This time she kept to the mountains, careful to stay out of sight. In all the chaos, she managed to slip past the primalist lines and fly straight toward Raszageth's vortex. The violent winds, however, forced her to land on a mountain ledge nearby, where she sank her claws into the rock and turned her head to the heavens. "Raszageth!" Acronia called out, hoping her voice carried over the winds. "You must strike in Neltharion! He has taken a mortal form and uses a Titan artifact to control his forces!" A deep laugh echoed from within the clouds. Veins of lightning swirled around the vortex. Suddenly, the whole of the storm exploded out with a crack of thunder, sending debris flying in all directions. A tree slammed into the ledge below Acronia, shattering on impact. A boulder cratered the mountain's face behind her, and the whole of the world shook. Acronia cowered, then looked up. Raszageth hovered just below the cloud line, lightning dancing over her wings. The incarnate faced the battlefield and let out a roar that made the entirety of the valley tremble. "Is that so, whelp?" Raszageth said with a cackle, turning her attention to Acronia. "Let me help you," Acronia said. "I can show you the way." "Do you think I need your help?" the Storm Eater said, lightning snapping across her horns. "This war has begun in earnest now. I have no more need of you or your brother's games. I shall drown the Broodlands in an unending storm, starting with Neltharion and his little insects." The Storm Eater turned away. In desperation, Acronia leapt into the storm, shouting, "Raszageth, wait!" A bright flash of lightning enveloped the little black dragon, setting every nerve in her body alight. As she fell from the skies, the world went dark. So she offered a little bit, really a key piece of intel, and now she's gone. So she's no longer a threat. But again, that key piece of intel is far more damaging than 2 more dragons not joining the fight would have been. Just stupid. Stupid. I half expected the old dragon to really be like a dupe, to be like a primal dragon in disguise or something, because that was such a stupid thing. And this is the first book we've read by this writer, but I gotta say, it's just, you either are going to greatly reduce the respect for the dragons, and maybe this is like them in their primal form and they're just not wise, but come on. You could write, if you wanted her to escape and get that piece of intel out, write something more believable. I don't know. Sorry. The book's not terrible so far, but that was weak. All right, we have another episode in the pipe, 5x5, and as always, I appreciate you guys for tuning in, for watching. You know, it's easy to criticize, and when you're not the one creating, so I never forget that, and I know I'm just some schmuck that reads it. So I have fun. I appreciate it being written, and I will see everybody next time on Lore of Warcraft.